FM. We're also streaming from the SuperTalk Mississippi app. And of course, you can always find us too on your local SuperTalk Mississippi radio station. And you can watch us. We are on your computer or your mobile device. Just head on over to SuperTalk TV. And you guys know that we like to celebrate recovery here on Good Things. And sometimes to get to that point, you got to go through the point of not good things, right? And that's the actual active addiction. And joining us today is Brett Montague. He's the CEO of End It for Good, and they are looking at unique ways to tackle this whole epidemic of addiction, not only in our state, but I think nationwide, worldwide, infinity and beyond, Brett. Is that what we
Infinity and beyond? I love it. I love it.
Well,
yes.
what's good for one, though, will start to snowball and sort of build up good things there. And you guys really are up to good things, changing mindsets, looking at the problems from different directions there at End It for Good. And so Brett, let's start there. Let's start with End It for Good, because I feel like so many have heard that name, at least around here on Super Talk, even here on Good Things, but they may not know exactly what it is that you guys try to do. So how do you give your elevator speech of what is End It for Good, or what you guys try to do every day?
Yeah, absolutely. And Rebecca, thank you, by the way, for having me on here. I've come to a couple of shows on Super Talk. This is my inaugural session on your show. Yeah. And hopefully won't be the last, but it's great to be here with you. So just looking forward to a good conversation. So End It for Good is a Mississippi-based 501c3 organization that basically does education and advocacy. So End It for Good, the it in our name is the war on drugs. And kind of, through education, advocacy, storytelling, influencing, and, just different educational means that I can go into later. We help people see that if we started addressing drugs and drug use as a complex health issue instead of a criminal one all the time, we would get way better outcomes in society. We would get better outcomes for people, for families, for communities, for law enforcement, for local economies, and therefore the overall world around us. For a full century, a little bit over a full century, America has launched a war on drugs.
And we're losing.
Yes. And not only are we losing, but we're getting bad results just about, in every criteria or every area where we tried to, improve things or enhance the world around us. The war on drugs was launched on a lofty proposition, that if we just prohibited drugs and criminalized everything around drugs, drug use, and the drug trade, that it would eradicate the global drug supply. We would decrease crime. We would decrease addiction, decrease incarceration rates, and the opposite of those things have actually happened. The United States has the number one highest incarceration rate in the industrial world, and more than the industrial world, actually. If you exclude just a few dictatorships like North Korea and Venezuela, we still have the highest incarceration rate in the world. Our incarceration rate is higher than Russia and Cuba. Our crime rates are up nationwide. You brought up our drug epidemic, the opioid epidemic, and addiction epidemic is at record levels as well. We in 2021 we had over 109,000 Americans die of a drug overdose,
which is definitely not a good thing. And I think the point is understanding the facts and where we're at. Because we can all collectively say, okay, so something's not working. So if something's not working, you don't beat a dead horse with a stick. You try something different. And I think what that looks like has been what's been debated or discussed or even just kept behind closed doors for a long time. And I do feel like, Brett, we're in this moment where more people are at least willing to have a conversation or think about it differently or we'll go about it a little bit differently, even if it's hesitantly, and you're starting to see the fruits of that labor. So for End It for Good, what is that key way of sort of thinking? Well, I guess there's probably more than one, but what would you say like one of the most impactful objectives you guys have in terms of doing things differently?
Yeah, so really what you kind of hit the nail on the head. What we want to do is invite people into a conversation, into dialogue. If you look at the current vein in our society when it comes to hot button topics or political issues or anything, whether you're talking drug policy or immigration policy or anything else. The kind of de facto means of getting there is name calling, shaming. My way is better than yours, and we want to do the opposite of that. We want to invite people into a conversation and really just help people see the big picture and maybe consider a different way. Laws and policies are necessary. They absolutely are, and we believe that we do need to change our drug laws and a whole host and series of drug policies. But before that, we need to transform our culture and our drug culture. And laws and policies only change after hearts and minds change. And so, what we try to do is offer people a framework through which to see the issue on a more global scale, and whether or not they change their mind or they get more curious about it, that's their choice, not ours. And we just, we really let our work speak for itself, and just try to walk with all sorts of sectors of people. We, in addition to walking with parents of overdose victims and people in recovery, we also work with law enforcement. We work with the healthcare arena, educators, soccer moms. It's a wide variety of stakeholders. And there are a number of other things, programmatically that we do to provide people with that education, and we also work with lawmakers here in our state at the local city county level and at the state level to kind of equip them with information so that they can look at policy changes that may get better results for families and communities in their constituent base.
And everything you just mentioned is what makes up our culture, right? Everything from the soccer mom all the way up to the lawmaker and everything in between. And I think one reason you're seeing hearts sort of be more open to the conversation spread is finally, I don't think there's anyone listening to Good Things that doesn't know someone or a close family that's been affected by addiction in some capacity. And that's sad that we finally have gotten here, but that's kind of finally what it's taken to say, okay, this really can happen even on my street or in my neighborhood or at my school or with my kids' friends. And, you try to do all the right things and it just keeps seeping in somehow. And so now I think folks are ready. I think they're weary of letting go of some of the, ramifications, which is fine. But then also let's just talk that these are human beings who are struggling for the most part and offering other ways of helping.
Yeah.
Or thinking about the problem. They're not the problem, right? Because it's the individual, there's a bigger systemic issue that's the problem, not like an individual.
No, there are definitely systemic problems. And let me say this too, kind of, on that tune. People that are problematically and dysfunctionally using drugs, therefore are suffering from addiction or addicts, substance use disorder, call it what you want. Those people, by using drugs, injecting themselves with heroin, fentanyl, whatever, actually by doing that, they're trying to solve a problem.
Right.
Because these are people that, have suffered traumatic events in their life, or have some other problem where they don't have meaning in their life or purpose or whatever it may be, and they're trying to numb the pain, right? Because their present circumstances aren't good. So it's actually, to a certain degree, it's a cry for help, or it's an escape, right? They're trying to solve a problem. And the more that we shame and stigmatize and criminalize these people, we are just prolonging and deepening their trauma. So actually, by trying to solve the drug crisis through a drug war, we are deepening addiction rates and furthering, the propensity for death.
Which is not a good thing.
No, it's the opposite of what we all want, including our lawmakers, including law enforcement.
Yeah, nobody wants that. Absolutely nobody wants. But what we want is to end it for good, right, Brett?
Absolutely.
And we can do that by continuing the conversation coming up next. SuperTalk TV, we're continuing continuing our conversation with Brett Montague. He's the CEO of End It for Good, and the It is the War on Drugs, which I like that little tag that I hadn't heard that yet for End It for Good, by looking at it from a different perspective, and you can do that from a variety of different ways. But first, Brett, I want to talk about how you ended up at End It for Good, because I feel like those that find themselves on that advocacy side, it's either a calling or it's a sort of a personal journey that sort of led them to be that passionate about an uphill climb, like changing the mindset around the drug culture.
Yeah, so this is actually both for me a personal journey and a calling, and really a vocation. I feel like I'm on a mission, and as the CEO of End It for Good, every day when I put my feet down on God's green earth, I know exactly where I'm going and what I'm shooting for. And not everybody gets that, but it was a journey and really a very dark roller coaster of a ride for me to get here. As I told you earlier before we were on air, I'm originally from Hattiesburg. Grew up in a good, loving, well-respected family. With educators and attorneys in my family, and I have an older brother that's 2.5 years older than me, and we were loved in we were raised in a loving, decent environment, right? And had all the things, kind of set up to be successful, et cetera. Douglas and I, that's my brother. We kind of ran in the same circles, had a lot of the same hobbies, and some of the same bad habits too. And getting into college, we both had experimented with a number of different substances, a number of different drugs. But our lives eventually went two different directions, and I got a lucky opportunity between my sophomore and junior year in college, where I got to go study abroad in Spain for a year, and it just opened me up to a whole new world, whole new way of thinking, another culture, and and I was studying Spanish and international relations at Southern Miss. And it made me just get real passionate about my studies, and I wanted to be present for that. So I really just put partying and drug use to the side. A couple of years later, in 2007, I was in the Peace Corps in South America, and at one point that year, I got a call from my dad letting me know that my brother had just entered into treatment after falling in the trap of a dangerous cycle of a heroin addiction. And it kind of hit me there that, like, I'm out here in the world traveling, making a difference, yada, yada, yada. And my brother just, he's developed, like, he hadn't found purpose, meaning, like that. And he's stagnant in Hattiesburg, and he's turning to other things to fill the void. So a huge amount of compassion just flowed out of there with me. And I didn't really realize that at the time. It was more looking back on it later, But it was very painful being on the other side of the equator and knowing that had happened to him. Fast forwarding from there, 10 years from there, from 2007 to 2017, on my brother's 38th birthday in 2017, he suffered an overdose. And he luckily survived. There was he had a conscientious friend next to him who called 911. There happened to be an ambulance 2 blocks away. They resuscitated him with Narcan. But it was a rock bottom moment for him and for the rest of our family. My parents had tried everything in the book, to help him in that, span of 10 years. We put him through very expensive rehabs. They put him through very expensive rehabs, bare bones ones run by the state. We left him in jail once for 3 months. There were family interventions. We tried all of it. None of it worked. But after this episode, I just kind of blindly went and saw him. He was living in North Carolina at the time. I just blindly drove up there because he was like, he'd gone through this experience of losing his job, losing his car, losing his house, losing everything, right? And I just sat with him. And instead of like trying to coerce, or bend him to my will like we've been doing for 10 years, I just decided to sit there with him and listen to him. And it was interesting, Rebecca, because that approach actually helped him see, it accelerated his ability to make the decision he needed to make in the first place, to get better and to get into rehab. And when
they have to connect their own dots.
They do. They do. They do, until they're ready.
Until they're ready. But you never know when that magic moment will be. And if everybody is working collectively to change the culture, more of those aha moments can happen. And then hopefully prevention, too, of another brother or sister or mother or father or aunt or uncle find themselves having to hit rock bottom to sort of come out of that. And one way you can get more information, I know, on all of this is by joining the conversation. You guys have your Drugs and Addiction Summit that's coming up.
We do.
When is that?
That is going to be November 16th, Thursday, November 16th, 2023, next month, at the Jackson Convention Center, Convention Complex. I'm sorry, I'm misreferring to it. Jackson Convention Complex.
There's only one. People would know.
Yeah. And so, it's coming up, that date. It's going to be a day-long summit from 9 to 3 where we will be exploring, solutions to drugs and addiction that prioritize life, that preserve families, and then enhance public safety. And we'll have a range of speakers, panelists, and storytellers that help stakeholders and spectators, audience members, kind of take that journey to kind of explore harm-reducing drug policies outside of the war on drugs. And it'll include a legislative panel that we'll have that day of some state lawmakers. We'll also just have one speaker that runs an organization called Allies in Recovery, who is just going to talk about how family members that can maintain loving and connected, bonded relationships with their loved one who is suffering from addiction while also maintaining effective boundaries. And that just doesn't even touch on policy, but we'll have some interesting other things, around psychedelic therapy. As you may know, there's been a lot of research that comes out that has come out and is emerging around the medical benefits of psychedelic therapy. And a range of other speakers as well. And we did one of these previously in 2021 in Hattiesburg with 250 people, and we're expecting 400 this year. Ranging from state lawmakers to soccer moms. To law enforcement, healthcare leaders, a wide variety of people. So if
you're interested in this topic or feel personally compelled, then you're a good fit.
Yes, absolutely.
So it's not like you have to be a therapist or a doctor or law enforcement. Like it's just a concerned citizen or family member, then you're a good fit for this.
Absolutely.
And or healthcare professional, law enforcement. All of the above. Right, because it's going to take all of us to sort of think about it and think through it differently, to how you parent, to how you respond, to how you cope and do all those things. How else can us listening to good things get involved within it for good? Because it feels like you're drinking from a water hose in terms of trying to solve the problem. So, what else is it that we can do to sort of be part of the solution instead of part of the problem?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. First of all, I would say, follow us on social media. We're on Facebook. We're on Instagram. You can go to our website and learn a little bit more. There are a number of different resources that we have that we can provide you with to kind of educate yourself. We encourage people to kind of carry this conversation forward to their neighbors, their fellow family members, their coworkers, their church members, et cetera, et cetera. We do have some volunteer opportunities every once in a while as well. We'll have a range of volunteers helping us with our summit next month as well. We're a young organization. We're 3 years into this. Down the road, we're looking into building, kind of an advocate network based, to build on the base of current advocates that we have that carry our message forward. We'll see what that looks like as we build. And I'd love to come back here and talk more about
Absolutely.
that, later on down the road. But
I take from your conversation too, Brett, is just have compassion.
Yes.
Just increase your capacity for compassion for the topic, and it can go a long way.
Yeah, it absolutely can.
Yeah, Jesus changed a lot of hearts and threw no stones. Just saying.
You're exactly right. Yes.
in that way. So I love it. I think this is just good to sort of have the conversation with the summit, though, Brett. Do we need tickets? Do we need to sign up? How does that work? Where do we go?
Yes, you can go to enditforgood.com and you'll see an icon where you can register for the summit. It's an easy 60-second registration. There is a $25 entrance fee.
Very manageable.
Yes, very manageable. But it's an easy registration.
All right, Brett, you gonna come back and visit?
I absolutely am. Hoping the invitation, comes in down the road.
Absolutely. Yeah. But you guys stick with us. We got a hopeful American Idol.